everybody, and welcome to AI People. Today we're talking to Helen Gu, who is the CEO at Insight Finder, which is an AI and IT observability platform. Greetings, Helen.
Hi, Ben. Thanks. Thanks for inviting me.
So we always start every podcast by asking you to make a few predictions about the AI industry as a whole. So the first question is, how do you see humans and AI collaborating with regard to work in 5 years' time and in 15 years' time?
Yeah, so interestingly, Insight Finder is about a prediction company. So we actually use AI technology to predict whether there's outages or problems happen. So prediction has been really the theme for me. And I would say it's very hard to predict, right? So first of all, we all know prediction is very hard. And I think right now with the kind of the pace, how AI evolving, and I think the interaction between human and AI also rapidly change, right? So I think, if you go back a little bit, right? So I always tell people you predict based on history. And so if you go back 10 years and, maybe 15 years, it's more AI is a tools for people, right? So we provide a set of algorithms and then AI can analyze data, provide insights, right? So that's a lot of company has been doing. And so looking at the future, I think there's a lot of basically manual or tedious work can be replaced by AI, and AI can also do some simple reasoning. So the key thing here is that you need to actually know how to actually train your AI models, right? So I still believe basically AI should be actually tied to certain domain. So, general AI technology is only good for some 80% of the use cases. And if you want to cover the rest of the 20% use cases, you need to know how to train your model, how to actually tune your model based on your use case, right? And then I think the interaction will become not basically to literally do the work, but also more importantly, have people to know how to train the model and then how to actually let the model do the work with very minimum human supervision, right? So that's basically, I think, the key. And there's tons of opportunities. You can actually customize your models to fit different domains. So I think that's where basically a lot of human and model interaction will be. Yeah.
So kind of 5 years' time, the main kind of focus for us is going to be, getting our knowledge into the models in very kind of specific kind of areas of where we're working.
Yeah, then if you look more, I think it's basically becomes mutual, right? So now you teach basically AI, and then later we want to learn from AI, right? So this is basically, I think it's already happening, right? So I'm asking my son to use AI technology to learn a lot of things, right? So I think AI becomes kind of aggregation of lots of knowledges from many experts, experienced people, and then in the future, that AI will become basically a teacher, right, trainer for people as well, right? So if they want to do some work, and so they can learn from AI. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one of the best use cases I've found so far is kind of AI as a teacher, because I think it's incredibly good at explaining things in a way which really resonates to you, whoever you are, like whether you're a child or an adult, it kind of tailors things really well.
Yeah, but I want to put a comment on this, right? Right now, I think AI is not actually mature. So if you think about AI, is more kind of they know certain knowledge, but not complete knowledge. So there's a lot of hallucination and the false information going around. So that's one of the danger. We want to actually put the guardrails into those AI models, because if people think compared to a teacher, right? Teacher has years of training and validation, and they have degrees, right? So they know what they're talking about. But the AI, we don't have, if we don't put guardrails, right? If we don't put the hallucination detection in place, and if let people trust whatever AI tell them, that could be very dangerous as well, right? So I don't think we are kind of have a mature AI that can teach us. And so, you need to actually make sure when you get the information from AI, you need to have, validation on top of that. And then I think only after 5 years of AI still need to get trained by experts, like human experts. So only after that kind of matured and you have the proper guardrails in place, and then we can trust the AI to teach us, I think. Yeah.
And where do you think we are on the kind of AGI timeline? Is it something that's getting near now, or is it, still that the kind of perennial 20 years away?
So I think this is basically the definition. What is AGI, right? So like if you want to say I want to teach you some, elementary math, right? And I think that's okay, right? So I think AI can do a good job on that. But if you ask AI to do so AI can do whatever they learned so far, right? And so they are essentially a copycat, right? And if you ask some questions or some innovative ideas that they never learned, they will not give you good answers, right? And they also give a lot of wrong answers. So I believe if the true definition of intelligence is basically, it's just like we have like a different education degree, right? So just like, I'm a professor, so I teach PhD students. And so we have different kind of levels of intelligence or degree that, we offer. And so essentially, I think AGI is the same thing, right? So if you say, okay, if it's elementary math, do we have AGI? Yes, I think we have it. But if you're talking about more like advanced creation, architecture, those kind of things, I don't think they're far from there. Yeah.
Okay, so AI is at college at the moment, and we'll see whether it kind of finishes its full education or not.
Yeah.
So in terms of the global economy, how do you see AI affecting the, if we look kind of 10, 20 years in the future, do you think we're going to see more wealth inequality, or do you think AI is going to narrow gaps in opportunity for people?
So I think AI will definitely provide a lots of opportunities. And so the people who actually has a lot of ideas are being more creative. They will have more bandwidth and time to do those things. So I think people who can, who know how to use AI, who being creative will thrive, right? And if people basically just doing like, some kind of mechanical or very mundane tasks, and so they will be replaced by AI, right? I think this is the reality. I think everybody should shift their focus from, doing like very simple mechanical tasks to more kind of a strategic, innovative, creative thinking. And I think this is actually more fun to people, and also it's and we also need to change our education to how to like let people to actually think more creatively rather than just like repeating the same task and getting satisfied with that status. Yeah.
Okay, so before we jump into talking about Insight Finder, could you just give us an overview of yourself and your background? You've been blending a career in academia and technology. Like, how's that informed your journey?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting journey. And so I started basically doing neural networks back in 2001. Uh, so that's almost 24 years ago. I started working on basically how to streaming video from Mars to Earth. That's basically my PhD project.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And so back then there's not a lot of basically technology invented, right? So but we want to achieve this very critical mission. So reliability and all those things are very important. And so I basically use neural network to actually predict when you're going to have basically video content issues. And so when you have the video quality of service issues, streaming quality of service issues, and then basically perform adaptations to meet those problems and to address those problems and meet the constraints. So I've been doing this for my life. So I've been like, straight focus on system reliability, and the leverage AI technology to do that, because nobody wants to actually wake up in the middle of night debugging a problem, right? And
Yeah.
so it's such a hard job, and it also becomes increasingly exponentially difficult because like we have piled in so many functionalities and technologies into this computer system. Now basically even we have AI, right? So after I graduated, I joined IBM Research as a researcher, working on basically real-time stream processing. So it's similar idea, right? So like how to achieve like failure resilience and fault tolerance in streaming system. And so I get into more on the machine learning technology. So that's basically where I start to look at how to use machine learning to predict system hardware failures, for example, disk failures, things like that. And so we had a pretty good success. And then I want to continue this direction. So I left IBM Research and joined North Carolina State University as a professor there. So my research group has been funded by National Science Foundation, DARPA and other funding agencies, as well as companies like Google, IBM, Cisco. So we have been laser focused on how to use like practical AI technology, like particular unsupervised machine learning. Because like, in IBM back then, we use supervised machine learning, which requires a lot of data labeling. So that's basically where the bottleneck of machine learning is, at how do you get like a good quality training data, right? It requires a lot of data labeling, and in the like in my domain, like in real-time data processing, data labeling is impossible, right? It's not even a cost problem, it's impossible. So we basically switched to unsupervised learning. So basically we let the AI model learn by itself, doesn't require any human basically labeling or intervention. So it's more kind of automatic learning. So we in the past, I would say 20 years, I have been focusing on using this unsupervised machine learning to predict problems, detect problems, diagnose problems. Interestingly, like I think back in around 2014, so a set of customers, a set of companies, I think at that time I don't have a startup yet. So a set of companies reach out to me saying, can we use your algorithm in commercial environments? And one of them is actually Google. So I basically joined Google as a visiting scientist and experimenting our anomaly detection algorithm in Google infrastructure, and to help them see whether we can predict some of the cloud outages beforehand. So at the end of that sabbatical year, and so we basically proved the algorithm actually works pretty well. And so Google actually licensed the technology. And so I left Google and then launched the Insight Finder. So that's basically the kind of quick version of the story. Yeah.
And, as you mentioned, you've kind of spent a lot of your career in anomaly detection and observability. So when you kind of decided, right, I'm going to start a company, and you formed Insight Finder, what was the kind of core problem that you wanted to solve?
Yeah, so I think the core problem I want to solve is never changed. Is basically from day one, we want to help these the operators to actually have a better life, right? And so I'm seeing that like firsthand. My husband is basically an engineer, and he needs to wake up in the middle of night to debugging their production problems. So our mission is basically try to get system like self-healing, right? And the basic resilient, and avoid those problems as much as we can. And more important, I would say, like, the quality, the reliability of those IT systems, not only basically impact one or two person, it's basically massive, right? So you see like a lot of outages, like recently the airline has outages, all the airplane has to be grounded, right? And then if you see the outages in ChatGPT, and a lot of people actually, if they develop like chatbot, customer service, everything will be
Nobody can
interrupted,
write
right?
LinkedIn
Yeah,
posts anymore. Yeah.
yeah. So it's going to be huge, and so that's our like the core problem we want to solve is that how do we actually avoid that, right, in advance? So it will, because most of those production problems, they don't fail just like this, right? So they always have some small problems then propagates in the systems. And then because the modern systems are distributed systems, they have like already redundancy, they have a lot of very complicated dependency. So it's very important to, and there's always the opportunity to catch the problems beforehand. So so it's just very hard for human to catch that, right? Because the data is so massive, the data is so noisy and messy, and so that's where the perfect example, the AI can do that, right? AI can do that 24/7, right? They don't need to sleep, they don't need to eat, but we need to sleep, we need to eat, right? And so we want to basically let AI solve this problem that human, doesn't want to do or, cannot do, right?
And obviously you're talking about going further and kind of predicting incidents like before they occur. Like, what walk us through that? Like, how does that actually work in practice?
Yeah, so the idea is that you want to catch the early like warning signs, those anomalies, right? Those are not necessarily trigger outages or incidents, but if you don't take care of them enough time, let them escalate and propagate in your system, it will become outage, right? So the prediction, the algorithm is to try to first detect high quality anomalies and then link those high quality anomalies with the different incidents outages. And so we can actually know based on the trend analysis on certain metrics, and then combine them and analyze them together. So one of the very unique thing we do is multivariate analysis. We're now looking at the individual metric, right? So if we say, oh, this actually will use up, but that doesn't really tell me whether I'm going to have an outage, right, on my website. So you need to link that with everything else. And sometimes, like, for example, you see your memory increases, but if my workload increases, this is perfect fine, right? And if I don't have actually workload increase, but my memory increases, there's some bugs here, right? And there's some memory leak bug you need to fix because otherwise your system will go down. So this is basically the kind of the basic idea behind our product is to capture those early warning signs automatically using AI algorithms, and then basically to predict when those outages or incidents will happen. Yeah.
And you talked about kind of self-healing systems. Is that something that we can do today, or is that, something that kind of you're working on?
Yeah, so interestingly, there's a lot. So self-healing is totally doable. Just to give you example, we use Insight Finder to power Insight Finder production website, and so we have very small team, but we support like many big companies, like Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies in the world. And so the reason we can do that is that a lot of the problems are self-healed by our system. So I would say like over 80% of the problems are self-healing in our infrastructure. And so most of the production environments, we see basically the opportunity for like self-healing. I would say in our customer base, we see like over 50%. Yeah.
And the conversations that you have with enterprise companies, like how do they feel about moving towards like predictive analytics and autonomous decision making? They're obviously giving away a lot of control over their production systems and important IT systems. How do enterprise companies think about that kind of risk, I suppose?
Right. So when you talk about prediction, so that's pretty much everybody wants it, right? So we talk to customers. Customer a lot of times they will just we talk to their VPs, SVPs, CTOs, and most of the time they were saying like we have been looking a tool like this for like 20 years for my career. And so everybody wants to get warning before outage happens, right? No one wants to actually like spend Saturday night and debugging with 200 people on the bridge call to try to figure out what's going on when your company is actually losing millions of dollars every hour, right? So
Yeah.
you never want to get into that situation. I think this kind of message resonates well pretty much with everybody. Like even with small companies, we also support some like small companies. They power basically the online educations, for example. They power basically the all the Wi-Fi services, right, for national parks. And so those things basically, even they don't have big team, and but they have big responsibility, right? So when things happens like impact tons of people, right? So I think prediction is always the kind of ultimate goal for many customers. In terms of self-healing, of course, like people will feel like not uh, fully trust the AI to do work, right? This is totally understandable because just like we need to establish certain trust with the system before we actually, let the system to do the full control. But what I'm saying is that like, we are not actually just doing this full control without any validation from human, right? So in the early decisions, like we always send those notifications predictions to human first, then the human will decide, okay, we will also provide the recommendations saying you can do this, and they can actually make decision whether I should do it or not. And we make it really easy. They can actually trigger those actions really easy from our tool. And now even we have the MCP server, they can actually issue the command from the MCP, the RM kind of chatbot, right? So this is basically all make the things really easy for human to execute those actions, but the decision, the final control is still with the human. Yeah.
And in terms of the observability market for AI, there's a huge number of startups kind of coming into the space over recent years. Like, where do you think we are now in terms of the market, and where are we heading? Like, what's the kind of next stage for AI observability?
Yeah, it's still early stage, I would say, very early on. There are a lot of startup companies get started in this space. I think the AI observability, sometimes the terminology is a little bit misleading. There's two kinds of observability company, right? So basically one, so traditionally it's called AI ops, and but even AI ops is actually a misleading term. So it's more kind of you use AI technology to actually enhance your observability, right? So this is basically one type of company. And the other type of company is to use observability, traditional observability to monitor AI systems.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like Insight Finder is more kind of an AI driven observability company, and we actually can do the observability for both traditional IT system or AI system. So generally speaking, I think the space for the kind of AI driven observability has been well. So it's now new concept. But the problem is that a lot of like companies, they stay with like very rudimentary problems, like even correlation, like maybe like threshold based anomaly detection, alerting. So those are not be able to actually meet customer goal, right? So the customer wants fully kind of automatic anomaly detection, high quality anomaly detection service, and prediction capability. So I would say like in that aspect, so Insight Finder is pretty unique because we have been working in this space, like, considering my research is 25 years and consider the company itself is 10 years. And so we spent 10 years to build this predictive analytics basically for observability solutions. So it's a very hard problem. And the other thing is that basically on the AI model side. So I think that's very, very new. And so a lot of people don't realize like how serious the problem is, right? Like traditional ML models, they can make mistakes. For example, we work with the largest credit card company in the US, and so to help them monitor all their fraud detection models. And so when those models actually have drift problem, has outages, and they will impact millions of users who perform transactions even within a second, right? And all of the world. So those are very important issue. But then when LM come into being, and so becomes even more serious, because like everybody can chat with LM and try to actually get the information from the LM. And so LM is basic statistical machine learning, right? So if a lot of people don't understand how ChatGPT works, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically statistical rules, right? And they basically, by training over a large amount of data, they form those rules, and they, based on those rules, generate the data. But the quality of those data is not guaranteed, because just by the nature of statistical machine learning, right? So essentially, I tell people how to explain ChatGPT. It's very simple. It's just it's a token prediction technology, right? So
Yeah.
you basically, based on the context of tokens, you predict what's the next tokens. That's it, right? This kind of prediction is statistical. And if it's statistical, it will have problems, right? So hallucination is unavoidable because the technology is like that.
Kind of
And
baked in.
yeah, and so if you have these kind of problems, you need to be able to detect the problem and to react, properly. So I think at that point, so a lot of startup company is using using another kind of cloud-based LM to validate, OpenAI, or using OpenAI validate Anthropic, or use OpenAI validate OpenAI. That's basically not going to work, right? So this I think this evaluation technology needs to really kind of has so more kind of systematic approach to tackle this. And I think we are far from tackling this problem. Yeah.
And in terms of building Insight Finder, you mentioned you've been working with like large enterprise companies to kind of implement your solution. What's that taught you about moving from your ideas in research and academia into kind of real world environments? Like what are the kind of lessons you've learned working with those big companies?
Yeah, it's definitely eye-opening. So I was chatting with my colleagues in university, and so sometimes you think, okay, it took like 5 or 10 years to build the research ideas, even in lab. Then, from the idea in the lab to the real world implementation, that's another 10 to 20 years, right? So it is very, very challenging. And so we basically learned a lot from our customers, and the real deployment definitely give us basically lots of data and use cases to polish our algorithms, and to understand how how those algorithms can work, and how those algorithms can fail, right? And so we continuously iteratively innovate and to polish the algorithm product. But the other thing also we learn from our customers is that how to intelligently use those algorithms, right? So sometimes customers tell us the solution. So just like give you a very concrete example, recently we work with these Wi-Fi service providers, and so they have lots of problems in their devices. And those devices are not necessarily going down, and they call it a flapping problem, right? So the device on and off frequently. And so so those typically a good sign. You can catch those problems early, then you can avoid like full outages down the road, right? And so so our algorithm actually can nicely capture that, because none of the existing threshold-based approach can do that, because you either has tons of false alarms if you set the short actually duration threshold, or you won't be able to detect it, right? And so this is basically a really good use case, basically our customer find for our technology. Yeah.
And thinking about like the AI industry more broadly, obviously there are constant accusations of things being overhyped, or people making claims which they can't back up. Where do you see, if you look across different areas of kind of AI building at the moment, where's the kind of most overhyped area, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of over promising in the AI startup company, and even like for coding. So there's a lot of like coding startup company promise can do like high quality coding. They can do some scripts, but for like building robust high performance distributed systems requires architectural design, requires a lot of thinking, and I don't think AI can do that, right? And so definitely not today. So the other areas I feel like many areas basically believe like requires human interaction. um like those people requires like sales, for example, right? So I think uh there's a lot of kind of context still is people business, right? So I don't believe basically AI can do those work, can replace the connection, the relationship building,
Yeah.
those things. Yeah. But I think the good part for AI is, I think like writing. I think AI can do really good writing. And the knowledge based kind of like information retrieval and the mechanical calculation, those places I think AI can do a really good job. Yeah.
And on the kind of flip side of kind of overhyped AI companies or kind of niches, have you seen a technology or a company which you think looks really exciting and you're keeping your eye on?
Uh, yeah, so I think there's a like for me personally, I really in kind of want to see those companies doing like education. As a professor, I do think education will be fundamentally changed
Hmm.
for a lot of for our young generation. So I think um, education can do in different ways. I'm not saying like AI can replace teachers, but I think there are a lot of like augmenting learning can be actually replaced by AI. So this is basically the area I'm really excited. We do have some customers who doing online education. I think they are doing awesome job, and to like do some like automatic grading, automatic problem generation, question generation. Those are very important for education, right? And it save tons of time for teachers. The other part I'm personally very excited is the healthcare. I think AI can do a lot of things in like um, initial like diagnosis of some of the disease, right? So you can capture the disease early on, especially in the rural area. You don't have good access to good doctors,
Hmm.
and so those basically the telemedicine, healthcare, remote, kind of diagnosis. I think those basically are very exciting area. I hope to see that have really good development. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And last question. So if you were starting Insight Finder from scratch today, what was the kind of one thing that you would do differently?
Oh, I will do differently, many things. I think I made a tons of mistakes. And so because this is first of all, I don't have any entrepreneur background, and so this is my first startup, and I made a tons of mistakes. And I think the key thing, I think like what I learned is that what we have been doing is also like talking to customers from day one and to understand the real needs, right? And so this is pretty much like 90% of my time spending on talking to our customers, understand their pain points, and to understand how technology can be modified to meet real world needs, right? I think that's the most important thing. And the other thing I feel like is the you know, the kind of the education on the market, right? So we have been doing very less on marketing, and so like, you know, a lot of we have been has done build our product. So when a lot of customers they finally find us on ChatGPT, and I was surprised, like a lot of recent customers saying like, how do you know Insight Finder? Because we have pretty much zero investment in marketing, and so they find it on ChatGPT. And so like when people find us, they all say, oh, you know, this is awesome. How come we never heard of you guys? And so I think like, you know, very different from other entrepreneurs, like they go big on marketing, create a lot of buzzword. And so we have been really like more kind of academic kind of driven of the company. So I think if I do a little bit different, I will put more investment in marketing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming on today. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach you? Are you on LinkedIn or X? Where do you spend most of your time?
Yeah, I'm definitely on LinkedIn. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn and send a message to me. Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time, and thank you to everybody watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of AI People coming soon.